Hello, Internet, and Happy New Year. I have a cold, and that sucks. But I'd like to take this time, anyways, to, look back and just think about the cool games that I got to play in 2023 before we really get into 2024 proper. Let's start off with a simple puzzle game that I really love this year called A Little to the Left. It is a fun little, like I said, puzzle game, but it's a visual puzzle game. So you have a bunch of different puzzles, and you basically have to first figure out what the answer is going to look like, and then get to the answer. So you start off with, say, a bunch of different books of various heights. And for some of them, there's more than one answer. So the first answer that I got for the bunch of different books was, oh, from left to right, go shortest to tallest. Oh, that makes sense, but that's only half the puzzle. After that, you have to figure out, well, what's the other puzzle? What's the other thing that I need to do? And then eventually I figured out, oh, you have to go from tallest on the outside to shortest in the middle, or tallest in the middle to shortest on the outside, because there's an even number of each size of book. So it's one of those things where you're not just figuring out how to do the puzzle, you're figuring out what the puzzles are half the time. It's an interesting game. I really enjoyed it. It's got a really nice, like, calm little soundtrack to it. It doesn't really require a lot of... This isn't exactly a Twitch shooter, you know? This is a nice calming game to play at the end of your day to sort of just mellow out and enjoy your time. Artistically, it's beautiful. Gameplay-wise, it's really interesting because you're just moving things around. So it's simple, but there's a lot of depth to it. I'd say overall, this is a fantastic game. I recommend it if you need something to chill out and play at the end of your day. Next up, the opposite of that, Apex Legends. I got back into Apex a little bit this year simply for the fact that cross-progression finally became a thing. I had originally been playing on Xbox, and that's where all my progression was. My friends decided they wanted to play on PC, so I made the switch over to that, but whenever I switched over to PC, it was an issue of, well, all of my progress is trapped on Xbox, and cross-play has been a thing for a long time, but I wanted to play on PC with my friends, right? So I know there's a lot of debate on whether controller is inherently so unbalanced that it's better than mouse and keyboard anyways. But at that point, when I was playing on PC with my friends, I at least wanted to play mouse and keyboard with them. So I waited until cross-progression finally came about. And now that it's back, I've played, maybe a dozen, 15 matches, somewhere in that range. It's the Apex Legends I've known and loved. I just took a little 2-year break. So it's a little rough coming back. It's... Getting used to the gameplay style again is very challenging because it is one of those, it's a battle royale. It's intense. If you get down to the last few teams, it's always a struggle. So, overall, I do like Apex a lot. It is always the battle royale that I will pick if it comes to playing a battle royale. I haven't really played any of the other ones. I don't really enjoy them. I played a few matches of a couple other ones and I didn't really click with them. But Apex really did grab me and I've enjoyed it quite a lot. Maybe that's the lineage of Titanfall 2 coming into it. Maybe it's not. I'm not quite sure. But I do know that it's still a quality experience. They've added a ton more Battle Pass things and stuff like that, which honestly are a little confusing at times because I've just been out of it for so long. But at the core of it, I can still hop in, play a match, and have a good time. I'm going alphabetically because that's the way that my list is sorted. So I've played these games at different points in the year. I've gotten into and out of a bunch of different ones. But we're moving on to Battlefield 2042. And I know that everybody has very strong opinions that this is a very bad game. And I can't say that you're wrong based on the way that it acted when it came out. I will say that because I have Game Pass, I get to play this for free. Or not. I get to play it with my Game Pass subscription. Which isn't free, but it's, I'm already paying for it, so it's available to me. I installed it through the Xbox app on my PC, and I've put at least 50 hours into it this year. Probably more. At the end of the day, I just really love Battlefield games. They've done a lot of fixing and improving, and 2042 is actually a pretty solid experience nowadays. And being able to just jump into 128 player combat at any point in time whenever I feel like it is just, there's something special about Battlefield. I know this is one of the crappier titles in the Battlefield line. I played a pretty good amount of Battlefield 5, and I enjoyed it until I got bored because they weren't putting out new content. They were focusing on their Battle Royale, which came out and flopped really hard, as far as I know. I really loved Battlefield 1. I loved Battlefield, what was it? Battlefield Bad Company 2 is the game that when I was like in college, I played a crap ton of that game. I like maxed all my classes and stuff. Had a ton of fun with that game. And ever since then, just Battlefield is a great series and it's fun to go back to now and again. So this year, because of the very low cost of entry, I was able to hop back in and actually play some 2042. I'd say that with most of it being fixed as it is now, it's worth playing, especially if you're playing for free. So, Counter-Strike 2, a controversial game that came out this year. It's basically a fancy update for Counter-Strike Go. It removed some stuff like Arms Race, which is really disappointing to me because I have this thing where every few months I just hop in and play Arms Race over and over and over again until I get a win. I can't do that anymore. It's upsetting and kind of sad to me. But I've been playing Deathmatch off and on here and there whenever I get the chance. It's still a fun game. I'm still crap at it because I'm a man in my 30s now and my reaction speed is basically dog shit. And I'm okay with that. It sort of is what it is at this point. I play it for fun. I'm not competitive, and that's just what it is. Sometimes you get in there and you get a good lobby, you know, and you can get a few headshots here and there. Sometimes you're just so outclassed by all the 15-year-olds chugging gamer sups that it is what it is. You just kind of have to take the L's where you do and take the W's where you can. So that's my entire philosophy on Counter-Strike 2. I'm waiting for Arms Race. I want it back. Please give us that game mode back. I can't imagine it's that hard to implement, but saying that, I guess if it wasn't that hard, they probably already would have. So either way, whenever that comes back around, that's when I'll be really excited for Counter-Strike 2 again. Destiny 2, the perpetual game, my evergreen title that I always go back to. Been playing it for 10 years. I had 1,000 hours in Destiny 1 at least, and then I've easily probably doubled that with Destiny 2. Every time there's an expansion, I play really hardcore for a few months, and then I tend to ignore the seasonal content more or less, unfortunately. There's so many good games out there, and so catching up on other games sort of like during the summer months or whatever is always something I try to do. It's impossible to play every game that comes out nowadays. It just is. There's so many quality titles. But Destiny 2, at least once a year, always brings me back in with the big yearly release. This year was not that great of an experience. We got a new subclass. We got some cool new guns, as always. It wasn't bad. It was fine. It's nothing to really write home about. It was new content, and we needed new content, which is good. I enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to Lightfall in the sometime next year. All right, sometime this year now, I guess. It is 2024 now. So yes, I'm excited for the new DLC. I really hope they step it up. I know that there's been a lot of rough decision making at Bungie recently. They've done a ton of layoffs. It's been very controversial. There's a lot of rough things happening. This year for the industry, 2023 for the gaming industry has been very difficult for a lot of studios. A lot of them have had to cut back on their staffing, and it's just a really tough place for them to be. And so I know that Bungie's going to do their best, and hopefully it works out for them. They're not out here to lose. They're not out here to fail. But we're just going to see. Hopefully Lightfall pays off enough that the storyline from this past year, which was frankly stupid in a lot of ways and really annoying because they never actually told you anything. Hopefully this time they actually just, give us some answers and give us what we're looking for. Wrap it up, guys. Come on. It's been 10 years. Finish the story. So, Final Fantasy 16. This is the first Final Fantasy game that I've really cared a lot about. I still haven't finished it because I suck. And when it comes to super long games like JRPGs, it usually takes me years to finish them. I've really enjoyed Final Fantasy 16 from the start, though. The storyline's fantastic. The gameplay is great. The graphics are amazing. The music is top tier. Everything about this game is fantastic. I just need to finish it. That's the truth of it. I've never cared historically about Final Fantasy. I've tried to get into Final Fantasy at least a dozen times in my life. And every time I've just sort of bounced off. The most into any Final Fantasy games I've ever gotten was Final Fantasy III on the Nintendo DS and Final Fantasy Tactics on the Game Boy Advance. I played those games a lot. I still don't think I finished either one of them, but they're the most fun and the most interested I've gotten into Final Fantasy games in the past. The other one, of course, is Final Fantasy VII. I got to the point where I got out of Midgard, and then I quit playing because there was a shakeup in my life. Basically, I had to find a new job, and it threw me off of that game for all of time. I have played some of Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's fantastic and gorgeous, and I'd actually like to go back and finish it out as well at some point, but when I find the time for that. But back to Final Fantasy 16, it's a phenomenal game. I do quite love it a lot, and yeah, this is one of my favorite games of this year, even though I have yet to finish it. We had a few surprise games this year. One of the surprise games of the year was F-Zero 99. It sort of came out of nowhere. There was a lot of speculation that we would be getting a new F-Zero game around the time they announced this during a Nintendo Direct, but the fact that it was going to be a 99 game, where it's a battle royale, but you're racing in future space jet cars, was sort of unexpected. The second it came out, basically I downloaded it, I played quite a few hours of it, I really have enjoyed it a lot. Again, I'm not very good at it, but I still fire it up every once in a while and just do a few races, do a Grand Prix if I have the chance. They've been adding new things pretty consistently to it. They just had a holiday event where they had introduced like winter courses, which was really cool. Again, hopping in and playing this game is just, it's a great game to fire up, play for, 10, 15 minutes, and then close it out again. It's just one of those hop in, hop out experiences that's really good. And it's styled after the original F-Zero for Super Nintendo, so it's rebuilt for a modern generation, and it's beautiful, frankly. Music's great, the courses are still fun, even after all these years. I really recommend it. I think it's a fantastic experience. GoldenEye on Xbox and Nintendo Switch. And, I'm gonna get a cough drop here. Alright, I got a cough drop now. GoldenEye came out on Xbox and Switch this year. It was sort of a surprise. One of those things where there'd been talk for years. There was an Xbox 360 port at some point that had never gotten released. But now we've got it out on Xbox Series X. We've got it on Switch. Switch got online multiplayer. Xbox got better graphics and remappable controls, like a modern control scheme. You can still remap the controls on Switch, but it's a little bit, it's finicky and weird. That being said, all things being equal, it's fun either way to get your friends together online or in person, play a few games of GoldenEye multiplayer, slappers only, is always a great time. I played through the single-player campaign. I streamed it. It was a lot of fun. It's one of those games that going back to it with a modern control scheme definitely changes things. It makes it a lot more fun in some ways, and it's weirdly more difficult in others, because you rely less on auto-aim in certain regards. That being said, it's a classic experience. It's fun to bring it to a modern generation, and really, it's a good game. It's very cool. Even today, it's still fun to play. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to Hi-Fi Rush, because it was also a surprise game that we got this year. Came out of nowhere. It was a shadow drop game during one of the big events over the summer, and it is made by the folks over at Tango Gameworks, who have basically only made horror games up until now. So, day one drop on Game Pass, really, really cool rhythm hack and slash game, sort of. Just kind of like a 3D beat 'em up, but everything is set to a beat. The entire world is on a beat, basically, and so there's little things in the background that are awesome that all tick to the same beat, And just in general, it's a really, really cool combat system. It's a really cool world. Everything's cel-shaded and looks really nice. So graphically, musically, like combat-wise, it's all super fun. The characters are all interesting and a little bit wacky and zany. Just in general, another game that I didn't finish, but I did enjoy what I did get to play. The first boss fight was just phenomenal. Guitar Hero. I had a weird resurgence of playing Guitar Hero this year. If you've ever played Guitar Hero, you know exactly what it is. It's a rhythm-based game where you play a plastic guitar. I used to play this game daily for a long time when I was in high school and college. It was like my game of choice. I would play everything on Expert, you know what I mean? So coming back to that this year has been really fun. I discovered that the guitar controller that I have available to me for Xbox is slightly broken. The start button does not work, so I can't just, there's a lot of things that are just sort of shut off to me until I get that fixed. So I might have to tear that guitar controller apart and see if I can check the cables and make sure it's all good to go from here on out. But something's up with the start button, and it's really annoying, I'll tell you that. Aside from that, though, the game itself, it's classic. It's just a fun rhythm game. And I always enjoy Guitar Hero, frankly. It's just always been one of those, top-tier games for me that I just love going back to. Gun. I played Gun again on Xbox 360. This is one of those, like, came out in like 2005. It's an Old West game. And while everybody loves Red Dead Redemption, for me, the best Old West game will always be Gun. It's an open world game where you play as, oh, what's his name? Who cares? It doesn't matter. The point is, like, it's a very story-driven game. There's exploration. You have to mine for gold to get money and stuff. It's kind of like a silly, over-the-top adventure kind of thing. There's a really fun prison break sequence. There's just all kinds of things in this game, and it takes itself seriously, but in the funniest ways, kind of. You know what I mean? Something that like a GameCube era game is really good about. So I just love Gun. I realized that there's 2 achievements for the game that I don't have yet. One of them is to beat the game on normal difficulty, and the other is to beat it on insane difficulty. So I might actually want to do that as like a stream thing sometime this year. I think it'd be really fun to play through the game on insane difficulty and get the last couple achievements, you know. Luigi's Mansion. For Halloween this year, I played through Luigi's Mansion. This is the first time I ever played it. It's a really great game. It was a launch title for the GameCube, obviously. If you care about GameCube games at all, you know about Luigi's Mansion, I'm sure. You can beat it in a few hours, it turns out. I didn't know that. And I did. I played through it on stream, had a really fun time with it. Just generally a fantastic game. The fact that, like, Luigi hums along to the music as he's walking around and stuff, there's just so much charm, so much Nintendo polish. And the weird door opening things, like, straight out of Resident Evil, are just so good. So, just in general, the first time I got to actually sit down and play through Luigi's Mansion, phenomenal game. Absolutely great. I recommend it so highly. So much fun. Magna Carta 2. Okay, this game I had to hunt for. I've been looking for a copy of this game for years. And it's purely based on the box art. I've always loved the box art of this game. I always thought it was neat. It's one of those games where it's a JRPG. It's on the Xbox 360. It's maybe like a $40 title right now, somewhere in that range, $30, $40. I finally found that at a game store that's fairly local, so I managed to pick it up. And this game is so horrendously ugly when you play it. It's amazing to me. Everything is brown and gray. It's from that brown and gray era of like Gears of War and Gears of War 2, you know what I mean? Where the darker and dingier your game on the Xbox 360 could be, the higher quality that meant it is. So just everything is brown and gray and fairly ugly. That being said, like, the character designs are bright and interesting. The combat system is weird as hell, but I'm still sort of enjoying it. And I've still got a lot to play in this game, but it's one of those games where, like, I don't know, without a concerted effort, it's going to take a lot to get through it. So as far as judging a book by its cover goes, it has a lot to live up to, and I don't know, the characters are pretty interesting. The story's very bog standard JRPG so far. We're going to see where it goes, though. Alright, Pokemon games. I've played a few Pokemon games this year, actually. I haven't played any Pokemon games since Pokemon Moon came out. So I picked up Pokemon Shining Pearl this year. And I know that a lot of people were super down on Shining Pearl when it came out. Shining Pearl and Brilliant Diamond, I think, are the ones that came out together. And a lot of people were very down on these games when they came out because they were like, oh, the graphics are so simple and they're not very good and all this other stuff. And I was like, it looks like Pokemon to me. I don't know. So I was never bothered by that. I've really enjoyed playing through this game. Of course, as with most games here, I haven't actually finished it entirely, but I'm a pretty good amount into it. It's Pokemon Pearl as far as I can tell, but upgraded and made shiny and new for the new generation of console, you know? This is one of those Pokemon games that throughout the years I've dipped in and out of the Pokemon series, and this is the one of the games that I caught back when it was on DS. So playing it on Switch has been really fun for me and just kind of like bringing back some memories because I played it in college originally, I believe. So either way, it's been a really fun time, and it's a quality Pokemon title, and it hasn't suffered from being forced into 3D like a lot of the other Pokemon games have apparently in the past few years. So I really enjoy it. I think it's great. The other Pokemon games that I've played are Pokemon Red and Blue and Yellow, actually. I've gone back to Gen 1. I'm currently doing a hopefully weekly from here on out stream where I'm trying to catch all 150 Pokemon in the first generation of Pokemon. I'm not going for a living dex, I'm just going for a complete dex. I'm not, that over the top about things. But I am going for a complete dex. Streaming it on Twitch, so if you want to, you can stop by and check that out. Around Christmas, I sort of had a resurgence of Pokemon memories from my childhood where I got Pokemon Blue for Christmas and sat and played for hours. And so since then, I've decided I'm going to go for the original 150. We're going to get there. So doing it as a streaming challenge sort of like keeps me on task, keeps me coming back to it, religiously as I should. And it's so much fun. I've missed playing the original Pokemon games so much. So it's one of those games where back in the day when I played Pokemon Red and Blue, Pokemon Blue was my primary, I can remember playing through that game like a dozen times in my childhood. I'd beat it and then start it over, every time. And I've loved that game so much for so long, and getting back to it now after not having touched it for probably well over a decade is it's something else. It's still a great game series, so I'm really enjoying it. What can one say about Power Wash Simulator? It's a simulator. It's a video game. You power wash things. It's extremely satisfying. My friends and I have played a ton of this game over the past year, and it's just one of those things. They put out new DLC, and we come right back to it. It's a fantastic, fun game, and there's just something, again, so satisfying about clearing each individual piece of each level. They just put out a free Christmas series of levels that I've been enjoying, and just every time they put out a new piece of content, it's always worth returning to Power Wash. It's also great for like us whenever we do group streams because we can just hang out, chat, and there's not like a whole lot of worrying we have to do about the gameplay and all this other stuff. So it's just a great way to catch up with folks because you've got plenty of downtime to just chat. Just in general, it's a really fun game. It still has a lot of interesting glitches that we run into here and there. There's a few physics things, there's a few like loading errors that can happen, but for the most part, it's a pretty solid experience, and I've really, really enjoyed it. Also, the single-player story has a lot of really good progression to it, so I recommend that as well. Ravenlock is a game that's out on Game Pass. It's this weird little voxel game. You basically get sucked over to a different world by a rabbit. It's very through the looking glass kind of thing. You get a sword, you get a shield, and you go out and you fight stuff. That's the entire thing. It's just a third-person wander around, hack and slash, do missions for different people, get different upgrades. You get magic, you do a bunch of different stuff. It doesn't really stand out in any one way in particular. It's just generally all around like a decently fun game to play. It's not necessarily a time waster, but it's one of those games that, again, it's not a 10 out of 10 in any one department, but it's all around just a fun game to play. So, Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2, the remakes on Xbox Series X is where I played them. This is the first time I've played any Resident Evil game from start to finish. It was around October. I was like, spooky games, that's a good idea. And I sat down and I played through all of Resident Evil in like a few different settings, and I just loved it. It was so much fun. And then I immediately started Resident Evil 2. I did both routes in Resident Evil 2. I just couldn't stop playing these games. I finished them outright, and that's really unusual for me because normally I take my time and I forget about different games and don't come back to them. Things like that happen all the time. So the fact that I got through these games is phenomenal. And frankly, they were so much fun. I have Resident Evil 3. I have it installed. I haven't started it up yet because I know once I do, I will be hooked into it and I will not be able to do anything else until I finished it. And I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully, I will be able to stream that sometime this year coming up. I think that's the plan. And hopefully, I'm not waiting until October to do it. I think I'm going to do it a little earlier than October. I think that's the plan. But either way, Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2 were phenomenal experiences. Beautiful graphics on the remakes, and the controls were, let's just say I popped in the GameCube version of Resident Evil to try it out, and I switched back to the Xbox version very quickly. So, I know there's a lot of people that say the only way to play these games is with tank controls, and I'm just going to have to firmly disagree and say, you play the game the way you want, I'm going to play the game that I want, because it's the only way I'm going to enjoy it. So, either way, I'm so glad I finally got to play these games. I'm not very good at horror games, But once I figured out that they're basically puzzle games that are spooky, I was like, okay, I'm good with this. I can play this all day long. So it turns out I just absolutely love them. Spyro Reignited. I finally picked up the Spyro Reignited trilogy for my Xbox, and I have played through the entirety of the first game. I 100%ed it. I got all the gems and all the levels. I did everything that I could. I started the second game, and I'm maybe 20% of the way through it. But the first game is the one that I had. I was not a PlayStation kid when I was a kid, but I had access to a PlayStation occasionally, and I had access to Spyro the Dragon on PlayStation, and I played that game pretty religiously. We didn't have a save card, so the furthest I ever made it was World 3, I think, on a single gameplay, and then I had to reset the console, so whatever. But I finally got to actually finish out the entirety of the game, and like I said, I 100%ed it. I got everything in that game, and it was so much fun to do. The remakes on Xbox and PlayStation and everything, and Switch too, I believe it's on there, are just, they're phenomenal, they're beautiful, they're several years old now, as you know. Toys for Bob hasn't actually been doing anything but working on Call of Duty, I believe, anymore. But the Spyro Reignited trilogy is still phenomenal, even these years after release. So I still recommend it very highly. And I'd like to get back and play more of the second game, because it's the first time I've ever touched it, and I really do enjoy it. Suika Game, the game that took over all VTuber feeds this year. Yes, I have played a pretty good amount of Suika Game. I bought it when it came out on the English store on the Switch. And boy, I've got some hours into this game now. It's been very fun, very frustrating, upsetting at times, sure, but also it's one of those things that if you give me a good puzzle game, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to play it. The physics make everything a little bit random in it. It's one of those games where you have to... The entire point of the game is you get small fruit, you combine them into bigger fruit, and eventually the biggest fruit is a suika, a watermelon, and if you combine two of those, it clears the board. I've been able to get a watermelon like twice. Most people consider it to the point where if you get like 3,000 points or so, you've sort of beaten it, quote unquote. I have gotten very close once or twice, like 2,800 points I think is the highest I've gotten. But yes, it's one of those games that you can turn your brain off and just play, and I find it really enjoyable. It's got a super repetitive song in it, but it's really good, so it's one of those things where like I come back to it every once in a while when I just need something to fill up a little bit of time, and it's still an enjoyable game. So, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Another game that I need to finish, but I have been enjoying my playthrough of immensely. It's got all the charm of any classic 2D Mario game, and in fact, more so. I love the new art style. I think it's really beautiful. I'm really enjoying my time with this game. There's not a whole lot to say about it, I suppose. It has 4-player co-op off the bat, so that's a wonderful thing to play with others. I've played solo, I've played with others. It's really fun both ways. There's just this enormous world of Mario levels to explore and figure out. Some of the puzzles are actually really challenging and very difficult, but I've had a lot of fun with it either way. The Last of Us. This is the first time I've actually sat down and finished The Last of Us as a video game. Early in 2023, The Last of Us became a TV show, and so there was a huge amount of renewed interest in it, and everybody was talking about it, and I had never finished the game. The first time I tried to play through the game, I was playing on PlayStation 3. One of my friends had told me that I should play through on hard, so it would be a challenge. I started playing through it on hard. I had hit a certain point where I could not get past it. I tried like 5 to 10 times, dying repeatedly, and I was just like, this game is not fun, and I quit playing it. I went back and played it, the PS4 version this year for the first time, and I played through on normal difficulty, and I really enjoyed my time. I will say the gameplay did get a little repetitive by the end of it, because you sort of hit a point where like, all right, we're doing the same 3 segments over and over and over again. But past that, the game is phenomenal. The story, obviously, the highlight, the characters are amazing. And so I recommend... It's very easy to recommend The Last of Us, frankly, because it is one of those games that has such a strong reputation behind it already. And they're right. The story is phenomenal. The characters are great. I would say that if you're playing this game for the gameplay, you're probably not playing it for the right reasons anyways, but the gameplay itself is solid. Like, the gameplay is not the problem, it's the fact that the gameplay becomes repetitive after a certain amount of time. But that's really the only, like, actual criticism I can levy against it. There's so many giant, really cool set pieces in the game. There's so many beautiful settings and everything else. Like, it's easily a 10 out of 10 game, and despite the fact that I have my own reservations about it, like, it's phenomenal. It is a great game, and I understand why it has the reviews that it does. World of Tanks is a game that I've played. Well, let me tell you, when I logged in this year, for the first time in quite a while, actually, and it congratulated me on 11 years of service. When I started playing World of Tanks, the first year that I played, I had like 9,000 battles in it. I would basically go to class because I was in college. I would get home and I'd play World of Tanks for the entire evening, go to bed, and then repeat. I've put so many hours in the World of Tanks. I have many, many tanks in World of Tanks, and I have always really enjoyed the game. Coming back to it this year has been really weird. I don't have the same polish that I used to have on my skills. There's a lot of new maps and things that I don't necessarily know or understand. So it's been a bit of a rough coming back to the game. I've had a lot of trouble with it, but it's really just I need to polish my skills up again and basically get good. So, but it's the same World of Tanks experience. It's still, you know, a fun game to play, to sit down and play a few matches. If I start playing, I have a lot of trouble stopping, you know what I mean? Because I'm just like, oh, well, I've got this tank and I haven't gotten a win with it yet. So it's sort of like always rolls and rolls and rolls until I look at the clock and it's like 1 in the morning and I'm like, oh no. So it's dangerous for that reason, if nothing else. But coming back to World of Tanks has been very fun, and it's still a game that even today is still very, very fun, in my opinion. And finally, probably the biggest game of the year for me personally has been The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I played the ever-living crap out of this game. I have well over 120 hours in it, last time I checked. I've gotten all of the shrines complete. I've completely explored the underworld of the game, as well as the sky and the land. Just what a phenomenal game this has been. The physics in the game are hilarious and wonderful. Just like everybody else, I figured out how to build a hover bike at some point, and then the world became like so much faster to get around in and explore. It was just so much fun. But just in general, it's a phenomenal game. It's got so much polish on it, just like you would expect. And at the same time, it's got wonky, weird things that are just out of left field. The main storyline was great. We had a fantastic fight with Ganondorf waiting for us at the end of it. Just overall, it's been a phenomenal experience. And like I said, it's hard to top that game for Game of the Year for me personally. So I'm going to go with that's what it is. There's only so many games that you can play in a given year, and frankly, I've been focusing on doing a lot more video content. My friends and I have been doing a podcast every week, and so that's been a huge commitment for all of us. I've been really enjoying doing that stuff, and so I don't have a problem with the fact that gaming has sort of taken a little bit of a backseat for me, but I am looking forward to doing a lot more gaming this year coming up, getting back into streaming a lot more. If I can get rid of this cold as soon as possible, that would be great, so I can feel like I've got the energy to keep doing these things. But yes, hopefully next time I put up a video, I won't sound quite so sick the entire way through. So yeah, that's the games that I played in 2023. There's some games I still have to finish. Hopefully in 2024, I'll finally get through them. But in the meantime, thank you for taking the time and hanging out and just chatting. Checking out the video. If you like it, then subscriptions are always appreciated. Let me know if there's any games that you played that were really cool this year. I really want to know, because obviously a lot of the games that I listed aren't games that came out this year. They're just games that I played this year. So are there games that you really enjoyed this year that came out 5-10 years ago, maybe even more? Because Pokemon came out, oh god, 30-something years ago? No, not quite. Not quite, but very close. So there you go. Let me know. And if nothing else, we'll see you next time. And check out my Twitch channel.